Good afternoon, guys. I know it's a Sunday, so I will this will just be like last week's trades that I took and the ones that I wish I could have taken. Just all the setups, as well as I might go into a little bit of analysis as to what I expect next week. I'm not totally sure yet. That is to be decided as we move forward. So let's go ahead and start with Monday. So Monday, as far as news went this week, we didn't have anything Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday we had FOMC minutes, so I wasn't too keen on trading Monday or Tuesday. That was just personal choice. Tuesday ended up being trash, which we'll go over in a second, but I'm glad I didn't in a lot of ways just because of that. So starting here with Monday, I was mostly focusing on this liquidity void or this NWOG, whatever you want to call it. It was completely unmitigated price, which needed to be filled. Therefore, it's guaranteed that it will be filled at a later date. Often it's filled right after it's made. Sometimes it's filled like months later. So it happens. First thing I wanted to look at was we needed our high time frame level. And for this right here, we had a 1 hour EOB. This is not the 1 hour EOB. The closest thing that we have down here is our 1 hour EOB that's down here, which we do not end up taking out. The next closest thing we have is this fair value gap. But if you go ahead and you take a look with this fair value gap, this is the bottom of the fair value gap. It gets respected here. However, the SMT that's made between, I like looking at SMTs on the 15-minute, even if it's like an hourly SMT. But if you look at this respected level right here, so this is our 1 hour fair value gap low that we're looking at, which gets that really nice, really like well-respected wick below it. And we have all the true opens above. If we then move up here, we have a very strong SMT here. And I would much rather trade off of the filling of an NWOG rather than the fill of a high time frame fair value gap. Personal choice, but that's how I feel about it. With this SMT made here, this was our most recent SMT. And here we're making these this lower low. Well, here we're making this higher low, and it has to do with an NWOG. So I felt significantly better entering here. So by doing that, I went ahead and focused on the idea that we had. Sorry, my watch is buzzing. So I focused on this idea right here where we had just pushed into the NMOG, and this is also the candle that made our SMT. It's the lowest candle we have, which also provided a large wick, both of which are very important. By providing this large wick, even though it is outside the 22-minute boundary, it still is viable to me because it's what made this high time frame SMT and manipulated the high time frame level, therefore allowing for an enhanced order block. It is also a PSP candle, and we can then count this as an order block. So as we go up, we open our 22.5 minute session, this little green session right here on this candle, which we dive into both right here. Three things being true would have been EOB, order block, CE, and PSP all became true right here at this level. So this was our perfect entry. Once again, I did not take this trade because I wasn't interested for Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday was a technical phenom, so we'll go over that later. But this was important to me. If you wanted to take a trade Monday, this would have been your trade. And the only thing that would have constituted this trade was we were manipulating an NWOG. Doing this, having entered here at this long, you could have placed stops right at this low and then looked for a 4-to-1, which your closest liquidity is there, which is a 4.3. No surprise there. And if you're looking for a 6, that's not quite a 6. You could have gone up to, you would have been looking for a 6 in here. So biggest thing I would have looked for is possibly a C of the range here. It doesn't quite make it. So I would have just aimed for maybe even this EOB. I mean, that does reach the 6, and with a fair value gap behind it, this would have been a valid EOB. So this would have been a valid entry here. a valid exit, and that's exactly what we end up hitting. We end up hitting that EOB before sending us lower for a XAMD structure. AMD structure. Except it wasn't much accumulation if you think about it, because we opened here and closed here. That's like 22 points apart. It's close. It's just Mondays are expected to be messy. It just is what it is. But would have been the entry that I would have been interested in, just due to our placement below all the true opens right here. Manipulation of the NWOG here and the SMT. That's really it for me. If we go ahead and now we move forward to, I'm going to take us out of replay and then just put us back in replay. If we go ahead and we look at Tuesday's price action, I'm not going to go ahead and put us in replay for this, just because it was very straightforward, in the sense that if you look at our true open placement, we have true session open up here, true day open, true week open. I guess I'll just put us in replay just to go over this, just because we might as well. Looking at the 15-minute, overnight we took out some previously unmitigated news lows, and then if you transfer back and forth between S&P and NASDAQ, we are S&Ping with this low right here, whereas this low down here has not been swept. And there's a 1 hour EOB that exists right here. But if we drop down to the 1 minute, we recognize that this 1 hour EOB level was not swept until after the 22.5 minute period. So that high time frame level that we were looking for becomes somewhat irrelevant at this point right here. This is the most obvious draw that we come down to, but we don't hit it until afterwards. And here, this is making the lower low. So I would have been much more interested in seeing longs on M&Q in here, which obviously we couldn't get because high time frame level was not accounted for. Plus, I don't think, if I were to go through this and analyze this, which I'm not going to right this moment, this is probably a 5 minute EOB. Yeah, this is a 5 minute EOB. You would have needed to find an EOB, some PSP in there, but I don't see much PSP in there that you could have worked off of. Oops. So that just wasn't anything that I traded. We had proper true open placement, but not proper confluences within our time window. So Monday was the only viable day, but it wasn't great. Now, Wednesday was particularly special for a few reasons. One, as you can tell, it's a different color than all the rest of the days. Now, the reason this is if we expand real quick and we look at this window on this day this is a high time frame chain day. So it is the third quarter of the year. It's the third week of the month. It's the third day of the week. It's the third session of the day. It's like, so all these things are stacking. So this entire day is high probability, but I only want to trade within the morning session. So it's this little red section. One thing that I look at here is we have, I'm going to get rid of these lows. What we have right here is this is a 1 hour EOB. If we look on the 1 hour real quick, we're also making a lower low on NASDAQ here. If you look, this is this huge wick that we haven't quite taken advantage of yet, which we do here. So if we then go to MES and we look at that same low which exists right here, well, this low is right here. If we look on a higher time frame, MES is actually making the lower low. I just called on this making a lower low because it was making an SMT, which SMT is relevant. Let's be very clear, it's still relevant. It was just more nuanced, I guess, is the better way to go about that. And we didn't attach to this 1 hour EOB at a preferable time. So right here is where I would have looked for our most logical entry, where we have an SMT. We make a lower low in this 5 minute kind of range is what I would look for. This is 5 minute with a turtle soup right here. We then provide an order block, and the order block CE is right here. One thing to keep in mind is there's no PSP, so we need to find 3 other things. And there's no EOB there's no 5 minute EOB, even though I don't like using that, because this is the end of a 5 minute candle and this is the start of a 5 minute candle. So this would have been EOB, which makes it irrelevant because it's so small. So the order block CE then becomes the most realistic option. Either that or the order block. You could have chosen either one and you would have made full take profit, because if we allow this to keep going, hang on, now it's gonna trip. You just gotta give it a second to load. But my point is that we keep going higher regardless of whether or not you took the entry on MNQ or MES. There it is. So we continue to push a bit higher. So I took the trade here on order block CE just because I figured that would be more realistic option for me, with a 4-1 here, which you hit within a few minutes, and this right here is a solid 6-1, pretty perfectly. So you hit both, and it makes for a pretty solid entry in my opinion. And once again, we're entering outside of that 22.5 minute window because the day itself is a high time frame 3-level chain on the yearly, monthly, and weekly, whereas our low time frame chains are the daily, 90-minute, and micro. Okay, Thursday and Friday were exceptional. So now let's go ahead and move on to those, because Monday was a little catastrophic. Tuesday was bad. Wednesday was particular, and Thursday was great. Let's go ahead and peel it right back into here. Sweet. So, the only way that I could describe why I took this trade, I actually posted this on the Discord as well. I had a bad first entry, which I stopped at break even at one point. But I had a second entry, which I took profits on this high right here, and we'll discuss why. So, true opens decide narrative. We started up here at the beginning of our 22.5 minute, like, kill zone, whatever you want to call it. Let's move to the 15 minute. Here we are. And we have news lows all the way down here. My first instinct is I want to trade to news lows, so I want to short. But what happens here is we're actually moving down below these true micro session opens, and that gives me this idea that we're actually going to be taking longs. So this day honestly was a little sketchy. I didn't have some kind of high time frame level that I was trading off down here. This wasn't like some kind of crazy play that I pulled together out of nowhere, except for the fact that we took out this tiny little low. News took that out for manipulation of the low that started our bearish trend on the NASDAQ. How many days ago is this? If it's 60, I'm gonna be brilliantly happy. No, it's 13 days. It's probably because the 1 hour. Take it back. I think it's 20 days for accumulation though, according to Day. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's not the manipulation leg I was thinking of. I was thinking of this manipulation leg, which is all the way back here. I'm on too low of a time frame. But this is this right here is a very strong wick, which we called on the day before, and the low got perfectly swept. This looks like it's maybe a tick or two. But with that sweep, it is logical that we would go higher. I don't know what our SMT looks like on that now. This isn't something that I analyzed on that day. Kind of just messing with it at this point. Yeah, so it looks like we were filling in high time frame imbalance here, almost filling the entire thing past CE for sure. Whereas the CE is non-existent. I mean, not the CE. This imbalance is non-existent. Well, we can take out this low because the imbalance has been taken out. But yeah, no. With that, this became probable, in my opinion. The fact that we were now in clean price action now that FOMC minutes had happened on Wednesday, and there wasn't much news except for this 8:30 news today that we could trade off of. The fact that we weren't looking like we were going to come down and retrace these lows. We were below true micro session open here. And we had made the 15-minute SMT that I was looking for, and we had this perfect XAMD kind of structure where this is X, this becomes accumulation with our open here and our close here, and then this becomes manipulation of leg in here. But it didn't end up being super clean because these last 3 quarters weren't obvious. My first entry was on this order block CE, but then what I realized a couple minutes into the position was it was an entry above true micro session open, so I closed it at break even, and then I entered at this EOB which was obviously the better move. And we hardly went into any drawdown here with our stops down here. There was a clear, this was our like 4-ish to 1. It's the only thing I could come up with for a 4 to 1. And then this right here was a very clear 6 to 1. It's going to do this thing again. But that was my entry for Thursday. I take it back. Thursday was not as clean as I thought it was. Friday was the cleaner of the two. But I was so confident in our development here. And this is out of the two assets, this is the only asset that came below true micro session open. It's the only one that looked like it would. So then when we then move forward, yeah, that's exactly why I never took this profit, is if you look right here, we just barely miss it by a couple ticks. And this is the one that I wanted, but I never got. So it was what it was. And I ended up getting stopped out at break even once I took profit up here. So that was good stuff. And then let's go ahead and go to Friday. Yeah, this looks like it was the better day. There we go. Much better. Let's go ahead and look at the 15-minute. So here on the 15-minute, this is a 1 hour order block, not order block, EOB. There we go. And order block CE sits in there. So here we have, there's all of these lows up here that are stacking up for higher lows. And here we're making that higher low SMT. And we are placing ourselves below these true opens, which makes me think that we're going to be longing. So once we hit this and we get this 1 hour EOB manipulation, which also lines up pretty well with this 1 hour order block CE, which is the same candle, but it's the CE of the whole candle rather than, anyways, make sense of it as you wish. But that made sense to me right there. What I thought was really cool was in this imbalance in here, you could take this entire imbalance and say, hey, this is the entire fair value gap though, so why don't we include that? And my impression is that this is actually an inverse fair value gap. What we're filling here is an inverse fair value gap, but the range that has not been properly filled is this range right in here was filled by this wick in here. Therefore, this part of the inverse fair value gap up here, this like top portion, becomes rather irrelevant. So it's actually this bottom portion that is also a fair value gap on the other side that's relevant. And if you look, when we go over to the 1 minute here, and we look at our Friday entry, you can look at this. Here, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to go and turn this to that. When you look at this, we actually filled this 1 hour fair value gap like literally to the tick. It is beautiful placement. And I'm sure somebody has a name for that kind of inverse fair value gap or whatever they call it. I'm sure there's a name for it out there. But I thought that was a very interesting setup. Now with our placement below all of these true opens, it was very clear that we were going to take longs. You look at this EOB here. You look at the order block. I don't know if I would count this as much as turtle soup now that I'm looking back at it, just because it doesn't, I wouldn't want to call it turtle soup as much, but I guess, especially with it being an EOB and it caused this low that we were deriving our S&T off of. But with this EOB and the order block with the turtle soup, it gives us 3 realistic confluences. And if you include this candle right here, which is a PSP candle, which also engulfs the EOB entry, you get 3 other confluences disregarding the turtle soup, if that's what you're looking for. This is all below true microstructure open. So I would have had entry right here at the EOB. And what makes me feel better about it, retracing here, is this is CE of the EOB. So it's not like rocket science. It is a huge wick though, so you have to expect it to be filled. Just generally speaking, that has to be an expectation. This is a very large stop for me personally. I was analyzing this the other day, and the thing that bothers me about this entry is that this is like a total of 3 points in total. So if you look at ES, I guess you can't properly Yeah, share that. But 3 points, in my opinion, is like, I don't know how many points that is on NASDAQ. Isn't it like 2.5? I don't know. Not something I know. Not something I'm aware of. But that's a rather large stop, in my opinion, especially compared to price throughout here. So you could have placed your entry farther down in this EOB, but I probably would have ended up moving my stop loss just up to this low once we respected it, just for that tighter stop. But you would have still had to place your entries based off, your take profits off of where that happened to take place. The top of this fair value gap right here, which is also respected on the other side, would be a valid take profit. And as I said before, this is a large wick, therefore you must expect it to be filled. Not even CE of this wick is filled. So this whole region becomes rather, and this also makes an SMT, so it validates the size of this wick. Therefore, this wick can be expected to be filled. With it being leading into C, I wouldn't expect this low to be taken out as it's taken out here. But that's just the risk you must be willing to take, especially if you don't take profit beforehand. So, like, had you entered on this EOB and your stop loss is down here, your 4-to-1, like the closest thing you'd have had to a 4-to-1 would have been all the way out here, meaning you would have had to hold through this retracement into a drawdown, which is not something that the strategy that I've been going over here has been something that happens very often. And then you would have had to have found like this fair value gap, the swing high end here, which provides a 6.5-to-1, which gets taken out right there. This would have been probably one of the longest positions that this strategy provides, because I hardly ever see positions this go for this length of time with the strategy that I've been trading. But yeah, I wanted to that's my recap out of the last week. I took that trade on Thursday, and like I said, that was a little messy, so I do want to work on that. But Monday and Tuesday were a little. Monday was possible but messy. Tuesday was not possible. Wednesday was meh. Thursday was all right. Friday was good. And I think a lot of that has to do with clean manipulation here on the 1 hour, as well as we had our FOMC minutes on Wednesday, which we got over with, and Thursday was met, and Friday turned out to be perfect. And I think a lot of that has to do with news, personally, but to each their own. And the placement of the true opens here was ideal, except that the true day open was here. So we had true micro session open, true session open, and then true week open is up here. So you would have had to place a trade without the true day open. But sometimes that's something you have to do. And it respected 3 true opens in total, so I felt comfortable. But that makes for a really good AMTX cycle here. If you look at this is accumulation, manipulation happens here, distribution, and then expansion from there. But yeah, that's about it for me. Once again, the only thing that I'd say about this trade is this wick is so large and it can be expected to be retraced. And the reason that I had that's 0.75 increment on here was because we perfectly fill to that 0.75. Everything is fractal, everything is quarterly. Keep that in mind with primarily time, but price as well. CE and quarters of price are incredibly important. All right, guys, have a good one. Thanks for watching. And then I'm back at boarding school now, so I will most likely, I don't know if I'll do it this week, but definitely the week after, I'll do daily reviews of all my trades. We'll keep that going. I know I did that last school year after I started filming these, and I want to make sure that I keep doing that, moving on. So yeah, that's it for me. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all on the next